You find yourself interested in possessing the powers of a warlock. Who doesn't? Is Eldritch Blast a wonderful cantrip? Absolutely. Do you get to access only your highest level of spells multiple times a day at the expense of only a couple naps? Oh yes. But is it worth getting all this power from the patronage of an Archfey? Of course it is. First, what do you gain from having an Archfey patron? They are famously secretive, inscrutable. As you should hopefully know, rather than providing for you financially like patrons of the arts, they will provide magically, granting you access to spells such as Fairy Fire, Misty Step, Greater Invisibility, and Dominate Person, to name a few. But what else? Different Archfey abide by different tomes that go by the name Player's Handbook. If your Master of Dungeons prefers the year 2014, you will also, besides what I mentioned above, be able to charm or frighten your opponents in combat starting at level 1. At 6th level, you'll be able to vanish in a puff of mist. At 10th, you'll find yourself immune to being charmed, and even able to turn an attempted charm back on your opponent. And at 14th, you'll be able to plunge your opponent into an illusory realm, charming or frightening them into believing that they're completely lost in a misty realm, only able to see and hear themselves, you, and the illusion you've created. If you're more inclined towards the newer tome from 2024, you'll learn how to use Misty Step at 3rd level, and even be able to take a creature with you when you do so. At 6th level, you can use that same Misty Step as a reaction when you've been harmed in battle, which could also turn you invisible or deal psychic damage to an opponent next to you. At 10th level, you'll be immune to being charmed, and potentially deal returning damage to anyone who harms you. And at 14th, you'll be able to use that Misty Step without expending a spell slot if you use it immediately after you cast any enchantment or illusion spell that requires one. You'll be much like a blink dog, the way you'll pop around a battlefield. But what will this patron seek from you in return? Being the secretive type, some Archfey may not reveal their purpose in granting a taste of their powers to a warlock, but then some do. So here are a few of the more common reasons one might take you under their literal wing. First and often foremost, politics. Nothing serious, of course, but especially if you find yourself in the Feywild and some being is seeking out a charismatic follower to grant the power to turn invisible and magically teleport, they'll likely expect that creature to use it for secretive political purposes. For instance, a warlock can cross between the summer and winter courts without the risk of drawing the unwanted attention an important Archfey might receive. They can relay messages, spy on other realms and their denizens, sow seeds of discord among rival factions of Fey. What better way to put spells like Dominate Person or Seeming to good use? Either way, whether your patron requires any of these tasks of you depends on their own motivations. Is it for power, revenge, leverage, entertainment? If you find out, please do tell. On a completely different note, having a warlock may also be a source of amusement for a patron. Some adventurers of particularly chaotic nature really shouldn't have access to the types of power an Archfey can provide, making them the absolute best to observe when they do. Sure, they break a few laws by mortal standards, and maybe even some by Fey standards, but by Tatania's perfect brow, someone has to. So it wouldn't be unheard of for a bored Archfey to make a pact with some eccentric creature simply to see what they go off and do with their newfound abilities. The desire for amusement may also push a patron to send their warlocks on very unique adventures rather than watching them stumble about on their own. Maybe some mortal has prayed for a long while to have their neighbor simply disappear, and a listening Archfey is curious to see how their warlock handles such a request. Or, a long time ago, an Archfey swapped a human baby for a changeling, and they'd like to see them swapped back. Their wish is the warlock's command. Or perhaps there is a particularly interesting or beautiful artifact that the Archfey longs to possess but cannot attain themselves. This request, just like really any of the others that I've mentioned, may have no scrutable purpose whatsoever. What matters is that the Archfey desires it done, and so it shall be. Should you find yourself with an Archfey patron who asks something of you that you simply do not understand, and the Archfey does not explain it, it's probably best to just leave it be and do as they say. But then, sometimes an Archfey will have very little to ask of you, simply content to have a loyal follower at their command should they need something later. And if that's the case, well, go and have some fun, you little blink dog. But if you are fortunate enough to have your pick, which Fey patron might you attach yourself to? No need to fret. I have some wonderful options in mind, starting with some of the most popular patrons, including Tatana of the Summer Court, Lord Oberon, and the Queen of Air and Darkness. Tatana is the brilliant and enigmatic Queen of the Summer Court, or the Seelie Court, more broadly. Few come close to rivaling her in power, but if that makes her seem too lofty to patron a warlock, fear not. She's known for being very fond of mortals. Fear her, love her, you'll find you have no choice but to do both. She's in constant opposition to her sister, the Queen of Air and Darkness, so know one thing for certain. To align with Titania is to side against her sister. But on the other hand, if you find yourself of the more unseelie persuasion, the Queen of Air and Darkness would be your most obvious choice. To the Seelie Fae, she represents corruption, but to the unseelie, she is the close embrace of night, its comforts and fears alike. She no longer has a physical form, but often appears as a black diamond, and her presence has been known to feel like a dark, rushing wind blowing through one's mind. Lord Oberon is another particularly powerful political patron, though he does like to spend more of his time away from court dramas. Titania's consort is also called the Green Lord, and he prefers to roam the vast forests of the Feywild as a warrior and a hunter. His faction of loyal followers, called the Green Fae, take it upon themselves to act as protectors of the land and its creatures. So if you're looking for a patron who more represents strength and protection over nature, Oberon may be your Fae. Now for a few of the lesser-known Archfey, Dom, one of Titania and Oberon's children, is known for his love of celebration, with all its food and drink and song. Should you be a fan of protecting nature and having a good time while doing it, Dom would certainly understand. Vernastra is another child of Titania and Oberon. She too loves and protects the natural world, but she is particularly interested in its beauty. She's known for her charm, though she's not very well known at all, spending much of her time withdrawn into her silver bower. She would certainly make for a very lovely and very mysterious patron. Titania and Oberon had yet another child, the Prince of Frost, or the Lord of the Long Night. Unlike their other children, the Prince of Frost aligns himself with the Unseelie Court, living in, you guessed it, the Winter Court. He's known for being merciless, but not cruel, vicious, but not barbaric. He typically hates mortals, so it's rare for him to take one on as a warlock. For that reason, I don't recommend reaching out to him for any sort of deal, but I imagine if he reaches out to you, he will have a purpose in doing so. And then there's the new Archfey on the scene, Zabila. Without sharing too much of her personal business, Zabila, unlike the rest of us, hasn't actually been an Archfey all that long. She lives in a land within the Feywild called Prismere, and takes great interest in the goings-on of other planes. All I can really say is this. Zabila is volatile, a fairy godmother to some and a living nightmare to others. Parley with this newcomer at your own risk, and I would be misleading you to say that only Archfey can serve as Fey patrons. Powerful enough hags can also grant you their power. Baba Yaga, for instance. She may aid you, she may eat you. The power will be grand, sure, but she and any other hag will be fickle to deal with. I'd sleep with one eye open, but then again, anyone working with a hag as a patron is sure to be clever enough to survive such a relationship, or foolish enough to be ignorant of their webs of manipulation. I suppose there is a charm in the naively optimistic. Now, of course, I have not covered every possible Fey patron you may encounter, but if you're looking to get involved with such a being, there's your most likely list of powerful Feywild players willing to take you on. I am also available, of course, but I don't really need to advertise myself. Anyone worth patroning will already know that I'm the best possible option available. But perhaps it would be good to get my name out there a little more. You owe me for this information. In return, go spread my good name among the lands. And only good things. I simply can't be bothered with another "she's actually just a fiend" rumor. I mean, really, it's getting ridiculous. Until next time.